Alright, hello everyone and welcome to another video. My name is Grestar and this is, as of May 7th, the current world record for Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 any percent new game on the PC as opposed to the console. You may have recently watched a video similar to this for the console world record that I put out. And so, just to clarify between the two, or like why I'm making this post commentary now, I just feel that in general, world records, when possible, should be made publicly available on YouTube, etc. Just publicly available for viewing. And I didn't want this to just be a quiet video, I guess. So I want to provide post commentary in part so that if anyone else is interested in, doing the run themselves, or just has any general questions, or is curious about things that I might have done in this run, that I might be able to explain some of those things. So if you watched that previous video of mine when I had the PS4, the console world record, a lot of this is going to be much the same, but on the PC here, it's faster. And so I'm going to talk about at least a couple different things too. So to begin with just explaining some of the choices I've made, when I was in the character creation portion, you probably, or I guess you might have noticed a few things. First, I made myself shorter and I made myself bulkier. Making yourself shorter decreases your maximum health, but it increases your character's speed, like I think your flying speed in particular. And making yourself bulkier decreases your ki blast power, but increases your basic attack power. And with the Majin in particular, female Majin, they have an infinite combo, which is, it can be more difficult to execute, like easier said than done kind of thing. But basically, unless you mess up or the enemy either has enough stamina to do an evasive or to vanish out of it, they can just be caught in that combo forever. So it can be really beneficial, especially if, you boost your basic attack power to get the, most bang for your buck kind of thing. As for why I pick the Majin in particular, while the infinite combo is really nice and helpful, the main reason is actually because at some point in the run, in order to advance the story mode itself, you need to unlock your race-specific transformation. And so again, with the different races like the Namekians, the Frieza race, Earthlings, Saiyan, Majin, each has their own different unique transformation. And I really believe this, the Majin transformation is the fastest. And then I would put the Saiyan transformation just beneath that, and then the Earthling transformation a good ways beneath that, etc. And who knows, maybe I'm incorrect, but as far as I'm currently aware, Majin transformation is just faster. So because it's a required part of the story, that's why I stick to playing a Majin. Now, if you've seen my previous world record for the PC, there are a lot of things that have actually changed between that run and this run. I guess a lot depends on, your perspective or whatever. But most of it, I believe, is actually done in this split, like at the beginning of the run, before and after the parallel quest, but certainly before the Saiyan history split. So we'll see most of it after this Raditz fight finishes up, and then I'll talk about it then. During this bit of time, I do want to say that, if you are at all interested in running this game, or if you just want to see other people's runs, check the description of this video. In it, I've put the link to the leaderboards, and this is any percent new game, specifically again on the PC because faster loading times than on consoles. But there's also New Game Plus. There are categories for, just the parallel quest in particular. There's a 100% run that Hatlord did. It was segmented, but it still took 16 hours, things like that. So if you're at all curious, go ahead and check that out. But the first change between my previous world record on the PC and this current one is coming up just now. In my previous attempt, which was 1 hour, 50 minutes, and 13 seconds, as soon as I finish with this bit of dialogue and I change my vehicle, I jump in the vehicle and I dash off to the left to go to the Patroller Academy, where you have to talk to Elder Kai, just as one of the basic objectives. Instead here, I go straight up the stairs toward the Time Nest, and I'm going to talk to that female NPC that's right by Piccolo. The reason I do that is she, for free, just gives you a Senzu Essence Capsule, which you can sell for 1,500 Zenny. Then I talk to this time shop clerk or transfer shop clerk just to unlock that transport option right by the time nest. Then I go up and I do Yamcha's initiation. There are two reasons that we want to do Yamcha's initiation. The first is that he gives us a TP medal, and at some point in this run, after the Buu Saga, you need to have at least 15 TP medals just to advance the story. Otherwise, Elder Kai just won't let you continue on. It's much the same as the transformation split. Another reason why Yamcha in particular is because Yamcha and Krillin in this game have special missions that have a chance of coming up every time you do a mission. Yamcha's is the only one of the two that's worthwhile. Like, Krillin's, don't bother with it. But Yamcha's is the Turtle Stone hunt. You go up and talk to him on the Resort District, that little island. And he throws a Turtle Stone. This is harkening back to the original Dragon Ball series. You need to find the Turtle Stone as quickly as you can and bring it back to him, and if you did it fast enough, he'll give you 10 TP medals. So already, you know, you're 2/3 of the way to the requirement. Anyway, after I beat his first initiation, I talk to him again, ask him to be my instructor, and then I do his Lesson 1, the second training mission that you do with him. The reason I ask him to be my instructor is when you first ask someone to be your instructor and then you do their mission, they will basically teleport you to the Patroller Academy. Basically, each potential instructor has their own set position on the map, but when they're actually set as your instructor, they all have the same shared position in the Patroller Academy. So whether they're Yamcha, they're Goku, or they're Frieza, they're all going to be in the Patroller Academy, standing in front of that fountain if they have been set as your instructor. So now that we've beaten this, you can see, like, once I click through the, you know, score and everything, when we load back into, like, the main hub world, we'll be at the Patroller Academy, which is right by Elder Kai, where, again, you need to speak to him. So that was the first big difference between this run and my previous best. So we'll just pop over here, talk to him really quickly, then go to the transfer shop clerk to make our way back to the recreational plaza. Or recreation plaza. From here, I'm going to talk to the stylist. This just gets him out of the way. And then I go up to talk to the multiplayer mode man, realize he's not there, do a quick U-turn, and then I want to sell that Senzu Essence capsule that I got from that NPC by the time nest, and then I go to Tosak to level up. The reason I'm leveling up now is because we're about to go in and do the required parallel quest. In that, I get to pick myself, or I can play as a, you know, canon character within the Dragon Ball lore, and I get to pick 2 allies. The 2 allies that I take with me share my level, so if I go in level 4, my 2 allies are also level 4. If I go in level 8, like I am currently, my 2 allies are also level 8. But while we're higher levels, the levels of the NPCs that we have to fight in the parallel quest are not different. Like, the levels are static. The difficulty is set. It doesn't scale with you. So the higher level we are, you know, myself and my companions, the more quickly we can get through the enemies that we encounter here. So while it does take time to, you know, talk to her as an extra NPC and get the item, and, you know, to go sell the item and then to buy the levels from Tosak, I believe that it's worthwhile, and that it makes this and the upcoming fights a little bit faster overall. To jump back, because this is all pretty much self-explanatory, you're just doing the parallel quest normally at this point. There's nothing really to it. Why I talked to the stylist and why I was hoping to talk to multiplayer mode man is if you do not talk to those specific NPCs, you know, earlier in the run, at some point during the run, they will pull you from the time nest. Like, after you beat a mission, they'll pull you out of the time nest back into the main hub to give you their little spiel, and then you have to go back into the time nest yourself. So if we, when we're already down there, just take the time to talk to them ahead of time, you know, they don't have to pull us out, we don't have to fly back into the time nest later, it saves us that much time. Multiplayer mode man, I found out while doing this run, only appears after you've beaten this first parallel quest. So, you know, in future runs, I'll talk to the stylist and then just go straight to the shop to sell the Senzu Essence capsule, but I didn't realize that the multiplayer mode man wasn't there right away, so... And, like, I technically wasted a little bit of time there, but it's fine. It's whatever. So if I'm lucky, all I need to do is land 2 full, like, heavy hit combos on the Cybermen, and that will finish them off. But there are 2 Cybermen we have to deal with here. Once they're both defeated, we have to fly across this way. In that little nook, we'll find, you know, basically a blue Cyberman, but it's a Kaiware man. I have not seen Dragon Ball Z that far, so I don't know their significance. I only know Cybermen. But I guess they're just stronger. So I'll fly down, I'll beat him up. Due to terrain, what I found is the best is to use the heavy combo and then meteor crash him into the wall. Either he gets pinned against the wall like that, or usually he rides up along the terrain, and I end up sending him flying out the way I'm currently flying, and then I just chase after him. But now we're gonna fight these guys. And again, just because of how many different fights there are in this parallel quest, that's why I really think it's worth taking the time to level up. You know, using Tosak and whatever items you find. Not whatever, but specifically that Sento Essence capsule. Just so you can take these guys on more easily, get through them more quickly. Oh, I don't think I talked about this. Another difference that you would notice if you watched my previous best with this world record is, in this one, I did not fight Piccolo. In the previous one, I fought Piccolo, and then I went up, I think, and fought Yamcha. And it was different, you know? It was different. And my thinking then was, at the time, what I was doing is I would fight Yamcha twice to get 2 TP medals. I would fight Piccolo to get a third. I'd do this required parallel quest to get the 4th. And then later on in the run, I'd fight Raditz to get my 5th. And then, you know, doing this Yamcha Turtlestone hunt, I would get an additional 10 for a total of 15. Since then, I've decided that it makes more sense to, when I fight Raditz, just fight him twice, instead of fighting Piccolo once, especially early on, when you're weak and he has a higher health pool than Yamcha. So, at the end of this split, like, you'll see I saved quite a bit of time. I think that doing, you know, skipping Piccolo was the biggest reason for that. Thankfully here, I didn't get any extra dialogue, because sometimes it can happen and you just have to wait for them to finish, and then Elder Kai will say, you know, alright, not too shabby, and you gotta move on. But yeah, that minus 121, I think that's mostly from having skipped Piccolo. But with that time that we saved, we can do other things to save time for the future. So what you'll see here, I'll jump back in my vehicle, I'm going to go straight to the shop, and I'm going to sell those Hercule badges that I just got from that parallel quest as my reward. Once we've sold those, we now have more Zenny, because that's how selling items works. We're going to go talk to Tosak again, and we're going to level up. Now, it does take time to level up, and so what you have to do in the run is determine the balance that works best for you. Because unfortunately, you can't purchase level ups all at once. You have to do them individually. It takes a lot of time, especially if you're on like a slower PC or a slower console, because you have to like, it auto saves each one, and you might see that like the yes doesn't light up right away, things like that. But leveling up all, you know, obviously it makes us stronger. Like first it gives us attribute points, which we can, you know, put into one of our attributes. But beyond that, just leveling alone increases all of our base stats. So it's really beneficial. So after purchasing all those levels up, we talk to her just because we have to. Then we talk to multiplayer modes, man, just to get him out of the way so he doesn't pull us out of the time nest later, like we did for the stylist. But then this is another big thing, that this is the first time I've ever tried it in a run. I go back over to the parallel quest guy, I say that I want to do the first parallel quest again. As soon as I enter this lobby where I can choose my characters, I just back out. And why I do that is this. As soon as I back out, Bulma's here talking to me. Usually, this doesn't take place until a good bit later into the run. And how I think it works is, when the game wants to show the players something like that, they wait for you to reach a point where the hub, like this main area, is reloaded, and nothing else is already, like, queued up for you to learn, you know? Because there are times where the hub is reloaded, but that's because, and I don't think it's as simple as like walking back from the time nest into the hub itself. I'm not sure the distinction, but that's why I chose to go to the parallel quest lobby. But like after you beat the Frieza Saga, you're back in the hub, but that's because Supreme Kai of Time wants to tell you like, hey, you can fly now. So at some point in the run, Bulma pulls you out of the Time Nest to talk to you about the mascots, which everyone cares a lot about. And she's one of those NPCs that actually isn't just out there, so I can't just talk to her. So instead I figured, since I'm already out of the Time Nest and in this central hub area, let's just prompt her right away so that she won't pull us out later. Because, you know, if she pulls us out, that means that I have to take extra time to go back into the Time Nest when I have nothing to do in the hub. So that was one of the bigger changes that I made in this run. So to talk about this fight that's happening right now against Napa, one of the cool things to know that I learned relatively recently, just through my own testing, is if you get Napa down to half health by a certain line of dialogue, it skips about 20 seconds of dialogue. Normally, that line Gohan just had, like, look at those eyes, they're bright red. Normally that would happen, like, in the middle of the battle. And then there would be, like, a lot of dialogue from that. And then we would move on to, like, that presence so strong but familiar, or whatever the line is. It's the same thing here with Turles, the other Saiyan. You have to get him down to half health before Elder Kai, or before Elder Kai finishes saying this line. He looks like a Saiyan of some kind. In fact, he looks just like Goku. Normally, that line would lead into Turles saying, my name is Turles, and then he goes on this whole monologue. Instead, we got to see Goku saying, you know, this guy looks just like me for some reason. And it skips about 30 seconds of dialogue. So between this one and Napa, like the fight previous, you save about 50 seconds of dialogue if you can get their health down to half by those specific dialogue points. So that's why I think it's worth leveling up, like purchasing the levels, before coming into this this section of the game. And you can see there, it said, my name is Turles. It started going into the usual monologue. Another reason I think it's worthwhile to purchase levels from Tosok before coming in here, even though purchasing levels does take extra time, is the fact that these next two fights, we have Napa and Vegeta here, and then we have them again in their Grade 8 forms. It's just a matter of beating them as quickly as you can. There are a lot of fights in this game that will not progress, you know, like to the next story mission until a certain amount of dialogue has passed, and there's just nothing you can do about it. But these fights in particular, you just have to knock them out. I think it's honestly the minority of missions. But because we're stronger, because we purchase levels, you can see how relatively quickly we're gonna beat this. Like Napa said what? And that's the last bit of dialogue that we get to see. Typically after that, Vegeta says like, Napa, hurry and beat them, or whatever. And then it's silence, and then it's just fighting. But the point is, you can see that like we beat it before the dialogue even finished. So that was nice. And we'll get the same thing here now that they're in their Grade 8 forms. With this first bit, you can completely ignore Vegeta. You don't need to fight him. You just need to take out Grade 8 Napa this first time. So the best way that I found to do it so far is to use the bomb type Ki Blast, which Majin has by default, so that's really useful. Because first you have to get rid of their purple little energy, or their kind of stamina bar, and then they're actually vulnerable. Like you can see now his health is depleting. So we have to, one more time, deplete that purple stamina bar. And now we can go straight for his health, we just have to finish him off. So you can see the dialogue is still going, but we've already beat him. So that's great. I make most of my splits on, it says finish and then it says clear. I make most of my splits on the clear. It doesn't matter terribly. You know, splits are mostly just for the runner themselves, so you can like know where you improved or where you need to improve, just so you have some sort of consistency for yourself. But just so you guys are aware, that's when I tend to make my splits. But yeah, that was the Saiyan history split. And now at this point, we're going to have to go and explore the 5 like time miniature rifts, you know? There's one for each race, and the significance of that is that's how each individual race unlocks their race-specific transformation, is through various different like little missions or whatnot, like little side quests in their race-specific rift. So pop in our vehicle as soon as, you know, we skip through Supreme Kai of Time telling us about the rifts. And I go from the bottom up. And that's kind of significant. Like, you don't need to go in an order as far as the game is concerned. But we want to have Hercule's house be the last one that we visit. And it just happens to be the last one if we start from the bottom and work our way up.
Greetings.
But as far as, like, the specific races go, as you saw, first we had, like, the Frieza spaceship for the Frieza race. Here we have Majin Buu's house for the Majin race. So it all just comes together like that. Next we'll go to the Namekian one, and then the Saiyan one, and lastly the Earthling one.
Greetings.
So after, you know, going through all of these for the first time to talk to these, like, quintuplets, you know, we'll only be coming back to these time rifts one time in the run, and that's specifically to knock out our race-specific transformation as a Majin.
Greetings. Hey.
Okay, so last of all, we're heading to Hercule's house. So we're going to talk to the last quintuplet, and then we're going to leave. And like I said, it's important that we have Hercule's house as the last one, and that's just because of where the Time Rift platforms themselves are positioned within the hub world. And so, as soon as we leave here, we're going to hop in the vehicle and port out, like, the front left, or front right side. I make that mistake every time. We're going to land right in front of Jija, this dude here. Talk to him. He says he hates bitter-looking people. We use the anguish emote on him. He freaks out, and he gives us clothes. Because that's what you do when you know, people freak you out. We take those clothes straight to a shop. So I'm just going to go to the skill shop right here. And you sell them all. So 4 pieces for 20,000 zen each. It's pretty good. It's not the best that you get in this game, but it's pretty good. And then we take that money that we just got and we use it all to buy levels from Tosak here. And so this takes a lot of time in the run. I wish it were faster. I really wish that there were a way to make it just purchase all the levels at once, but so far, haven't found a way to do that or to otherwise increase this part, like the speed of it. But again, each level increases your base stats even if you don't apply the attribute points, so it's absolutely worthwhile to do this. This was one of the big things that really jumped the world record up from, it used to be, you know, 2 hours, 21 minutes, and this run now, you know, is 1 hour, 45 minutes, 45 seconds. So, a lot of time, a lot of time has gone down, and buying levels from Tosak is one of the biggest things that has helped us reach that point. However, I mean, just jumping back to my point about, like, even without attribute points, it really helps. It also gives you attribute points, purchasing the levels from him. So it's even better in that regard. But we vehicle over to her because you need to talk to her just to confirm that you visited all the rifts and everything. She gives you a healing item in exchange, you know, cool. Typically, you don't necessarily need to equip the healing items, but this is something important to know. In this game, items kind of have 2 different states. You can own an item, and then you can have an item equipped. You might have seen in that brief menuing, there was an option called Change Battle Items. And if you actually want to use a healing item in a battle, you need to have equipped it as a battle item. Just having it in your inventory the way I do now doesn't help. So just keep that in mind. It might come up at some point in the run as being important, just throwing that out there. But yeah. Some of these fights can get really difficult. And they can really catch you off guard regardless of how much experience you have. Sometimes the enemies just bully you, you know? Or sometimes even your NPC ally really screws you over. With this fight, you don't need to worry about Dodoria, so I just knock him away. You really just need to focus on Zarbon. At some point, he'll be invincible, which is like right now. That'll change after just like a couple bits of dialogue here. Like Dodoria will agree or whatever. And then, yeah, he says, right, and now Zarbon, you can hurt him again. So you just need to get him close to death, and then we'll move on to the next bit. So that's another one of those fights that's actually nice to you and doesn't require you to wait for specific dialogue to pass in order to move on to the next mission, at least. There was that bit where he was invincible until a certain dialogue passed, but that was one of the nicer instances. One thing to note is that for the fights where characters are invincible until a certain amount of dialogue has passed, they're invincible, but you are not, and they will keep fighting you. And if they beat you, you know, it's the same as any other time you're defeated. Like, you reset back to the latest checkpoint, whatever that means. So it can be... It's a really annoying mechanic in this game that I really wish they didn't have. Because there is one fight. There's one fight in this entire game where when the enemy is invincible, you are also invincible. And that's the last fight. Well, it's the last split. It's technically the third to last fight. But, you know, it's against the last person. So clearly, they're capable of making you invincible when the enemy is. But they just don't until that one fight, so it's dumb. That fight against Lord Slug is really just dependent on the time. I frankly don't know if you could leave him perfectly healthy. Like, you might not have to beat up on him at all. I don't know, and you might just have to wait for the dialogue to pass, but it's really just dialogue dependent. Dodoria here, on the other hand, just beat him as quickly as you can, and then you can move on to the next one. Like, once you beat him, and it says clear here, I mark the split for Namek history, and I'm moving on to the Ginyu Force split. So something about this run that I'm not entirely sure about, but that I picked up hints on, you know, when I was first, like, analyzing, like, trying to analyze why this run was so much faster than I had expected it to be, you know? I was hoping when I did this run for, like, a high 1 hour 49 kind of time, but instead I got, you know, 1:45:45. So it was a big difference. And at least when I was comparing it to my previous world record, the first loading screen, like when you're going to fight Raditz for the very first time, like before ever doing the first parallel quest or anything like that, it loaded in about 3 seconds faster. And that's not a ton of time, but if it were consistently, you know, loading 3 seconds faster each time there was a loading screen in this game, that would make a difference in the long run. So I don't know. I only examined that first loading screen, so I don't know if it was consistent. But that might well be a reason too. And if it was loading faster for me that day, I honestly don't know why. But anyway, to actually talk about what's going on in the game right now, we were pulled out automatically by Supreme Kai of Time because Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 sold 10 million copies, I believe it was. So she just gave us an accessory. It's like glasses, but, you know, 10 million. And I figured while I'm down here, let's fight Raditz for the last 2 TP medals we need, basically, you know, prior to the Turtle Stone Hunt, which we still need, of course. So with that, that was the end of the second Raditz fight. So we no longer have to do any extra missions. The only extra missions that we did in this run are the 2 Yamcha ones and the 2 Raditz ones, and that's it. Everything else is required by the story. So we'll pop back into our pod because we don't have the ability to fly yet in the hub. We'll go back to the time nest, and we're just going to continue straight on into the Ginyu Force battle. So this split has a mix of those kind of requirements to move on. With these first like couple opponents, Reikum and Guldo here, it's just a matter of beat them as quickly as you can. But then with fights later on, there'll be a matter of like get them down to a certain health, and then a certain bit of dialogue will begin. And once that dialogue ends, you move on to the next bit. And then there'll be other parts where enemies will be invincible until a certain amount of dialogue ends. And then you need to actually finish them off before the scene will progress. If I could have my way, all of the fights would be beat the enemy until they're out of health. Because having to wait for dialogue makes this run so much longer than is necessary. There are a lot of villains who monologue during this. Elder Kai and Supreme Kai of Time, they talk a lot. Android 16 talks a lot. There are many, many, many moments in this run where you're just waiting for dialogue to pass. And for the record, in case anyone was curious, this game has two different language settings as far as audio is concerned, English and Japanese. And the Japanese is slower. I think when I timed it, I went through like each dialogue dependent mission and timed it. I think when I did, Japanese was slower by about 2 minutes. Just because of the dialogue that you have to wait for. So, in case you were curious, you want to be playing with English dialogue. But that's really like how much dialogue you actually have to wait for there to be like 2 minutes extra over the course of the entire run just between the two languages. It's dumb. But you can see here, both Jace and Birder are invincible at this point. I have to wait until Elder Kai finishes this line. Now I can hurt them again. I only have to get one of them down to that sliver of health, and then Supreme Kai of Time starts talking right away. Now once they're done, right here, now it'll transition. Here we go. This fight is much the same. They're not going to be invincible until I get them down to a sliver, and as soon as they're down to a sliver, it'll trigger a certain bit of dialogue that you then have to wait to pass. So you can see the dialogue switch here, or once I get the final hit. Goku immediately starts saying that.
Someone's coming this way. It's not Krillin. Gohan. Vegeta. Must be.
Doesn't actually matter how much health Birder has, because he's not in the next fight. Whether you beat Birder down to the sliver or you beat Jace down to the sliver, it doesn't matter how much health the other one has. Jace is always going to be the one in this fight with Captain Ginyu. And he's back at full health anyway, so... yeah. Both Captain Ginyu and Jace, at this point in the fight, you can only get them down to... You saw where Ginyu's health ended up. So Jace is the same way. And they're both going to be invincible until the scene transitions again. Once that happens, once the scene transitions, like, and we start a new fight, basically, only Jace is going to be vulnerable at the beginning, and we can completely knock him out. We can completely kill him. As for Ginyu, we have to wait for a specific dialogue cue before he becomes vulnerable. So this is just, you'll see this over and over again in so many of the missions. It'll just be waiting for that specific dialogue cue, and then they can take damage again. So now that it's transitioned, we'll kill Jace off. You can see he's immediately taking damage, and there he goes. As for Ginyu, though, I'll whack him. You'll see here, if I can land a hit. There we go. But no damage done. He's going to be invincible until Trunks, in Ginyu's body, says, this is embarrassing. So because I don't think I mentioned it yet in this run, just to talk about the game in general. Again, if you're interested, I think I mentioned this part. But you can find the leaderboards in the description below, so go ahead and click on that if you're at all curious to see other runs, or if you want to participate yourself, you're more than welcome to. You can find the rules, you'll just click the view rules button. If you have any questions, you want clarification, feel free to ask, but yeah, it's there. What I was gonna say was just pointing out again that while this is any % new game, this is specifically any % new game PC. We currently differentiate between the PC and just consoles in general, because PCs tend to have faster loading times. It really does depend on the PC specs, of course, or if you're on a solid state drive versus a hard disk. But currently we've split PC and consoles. All of the consoles are currently lumped together, which I don't believe is particularly fair, just because I know for a fact the Switch loads more slowly than the PS4. And you know, the PS4 loads more slowly than the PS5. And I don't know about like the Xboxes. I don't even know which versions of the Xbox have this game. But the consoles themselves have different load times. If I had my way, load times wouldn't be counted and we'd have to remove those. I mean, I wouldn't want to have to manually remove those, but in a perfect world, there'd be a way to remove them, you know? And DLC wouldn't be allowed, which even includes this little Saiyan pod that I'm using right now. But I don't like that the run isn't, you can get the game, put it in, and immediately get going in the speedrun. Like, if you want the best advantage, you have to purchase at least one DLC, the one that includes that vehicle. Which, to be fair, is like only $10, I think. Maybe even $8, I don't know. But either way. Yeah, so you saw there, we had to see the Hero Coliseum cutscene, so it pulled us out. There's no way to avoid that I've found so far. And it just drops you at the foot of the stairs. I'm wondering if there might be something that I can do during that, like, while I'm down there. Like, I'm wondering if it might be possible to buy Giant Storm, the ultimate attack, ahead of time, because normally I get that after the Frieza Saga, but I don't actually know when it appears in the store. It's something that I want to look at. But basically, what I try to do is, when the game forces me out into the main hub, I try to take advantage of that, and do things that I want to do in the main hub, you know, while I'm out there, instead of having to leave the time nest of my own volition later on, just to purchase something and then run back in. So we've already passed it, but in this fight, you need to get Frieza's health down low enough, I think to about where you have the number 1 in his name, somewhere around there. But that'll trigger him saying, you know, this is your final warning. And then that begins this whole bit of dialogue, and you just have to wait for it to pass. But that's the thing, like, you need to beat him as quickly as possible to that particular point of health, and then you're just waiting.
Gone off to steal them? You'll never make it in time. What do we do now?
We can't do anything. Come back for now.
There's no time to be dawdling. It's an emergency.
Exactly. So just be quiet and let me think.
So that's the last we'll see of Frieza for a little bit, because now Turles and Slug are going to interrupt the story. Because they're obnoxious like that. I don't love this part of the Frieza Saga. I wish it were just like the Frieza Saga, but Turles and Slug play like a surprisingly big part in it. Because I guess they're going after the Dragon Balls, and they got like the, you know, fruit from the Tree of Might, or whatever it's called. They're just a pain in general. So they ate the fruit, they got the purple power-up, basically. That's how you know they're evil and they ate it, kind of thing. So with this part, at first, you can only get them down to about their... You see the name Slug in health. And Turles can only be brought down to the same point of health, too. Until a lot of dialogue is passed. Slug will talk about, like, the surge of pure dark energy. After that line, then you'll be able to hurt them again. So once you get them down to that point of health, you're kind of just waiting. Again, they're invincible, but you are not. So you still have to be dodging, or you have to be fighting to keep them busy. I often, you know, blast them with Ki, just so I can get, like, the Ki blaster thing once they calculate score at the end of the fight. Or you can see me, like, I'll do a quick little stun, and then I'll try to grab them. If you grab someone 3 times in a fight, you get the grappler thing, which again increases your score. And for those who don't know, your score at the end of a fight is equivalent to the experience that you gain. Like, that's just how they work it. So if you're hoping to level up, you know, it can be beneficial to do those extra little things, especially when you really don't have anything else to do during these fights.
Wanderers like us should stick together. If you swear to become my royal servant, I might consider it.
But you can see just how long these two have been invincible. With me not doing anything new. And you can see Gohan's been dead for I don't know how long. I just noticed his health bar is completely empty. Slug has been going hard on him. I feel bad. But thankfully, Gohan doesn't actually die. Like, he's scripted to leave, at least according to the dialogue. So that much is nice. But, oh, if we could skip dialogue, this run would be so much faster. But you can see here, I feel a surge of pure dark energy.
I feel a surge of
As soon as that's over and it moves on to Turles' line, you can see they're vulnerable. So knock him out. Consecutive energy blast to knock him out. Oh, you know what? I realized I didn't quite finish something I brought up like at the beginning of this run with my commentary. And what that is at least I think I started talking about it. Maybe I completely missed the whole thing. But, you know, I made myself short. And what that did... No, I'm pretty sure I talked about that. But the thing that I didn't talk about was you get to pick between 3 different options. It's like, I love fighting up close and personal. I like keeping at a distance. And then there's like, either way, I'm good. You know, the bottom option is the hybrid option. Those determine the skills that you start out with. I picked the hybrid option because that gives me both Meteor Crash and consecutive energy blast. I use Meteor Crash more often, but consecutive energy blast... This is Meteor Crash right there. And consecutive energy blast, though, it saved my life. So, it can be very useful. But here at this point, you're just beating them as quickly as you can. So every time that Slug interrupts me with a power like that, or Trunks knocks him away or whatever, that's just more time that I'm losing. So finally, Turles and Slug are out of the run. They don't show up again, thank goodness. So now in the Frieza Saga Split, we're actually going to return to Frieza. This very first fight with Frieza, or I mean, obviously we had one already, but this one here, it's really weird. You can basically only hit him once, like to do damage. The way to actually move on to the next mission here, the next stage, is to have Vegeta die. You cannot harm your own teammates. So you kind of just have to hope that Frieza beats on Vegeta well enough. Some people who run this, they employ the strategy of they actually hang around the fight, and if like your NPC allies start ganging up on Frieza, where they just kind of combo lock him, they'll knock Frieza out of that combo, much the same way your NPC allies will knock enemies away from you when you're comboing them. I don't do that. I'm not saying I'm smarter. I'm probably not, but I just go in the water and hide, and I hope for the best. I always hope that Vegeta will die by the time Elder Kai says that line he just finished. But I do think it's funny when Vegeta says, "I'll show you something great," and then dies. That was just me mashing start to try to skip the cutscene. But here, and for the next few fights with Frieza, it's just a matter of get him down to a certain health threshold, and then it moves on to the next like phase of the fight, basically.
I'll take care of the rest.
And for most of these too, you might notice, like just these Frieza bits here that are going to come up. When it transitions to the next bit, you have the same amount of health you ended up with, you have the same stamina, the same ki, and that can help it sometimes, especially if you just, you know, regulate it carefully, because, you know, if you have ki, and that means as soon as the next scene starts, you can use one of your skills.
I'm a Saiyan.
And so sometimes that would be better than me like doing that heavy attack combo that I did there. Sometimes instead, as soon as I connect, I'll just start using Meteor Crash. I think frankly that would have been better in that position, but I didn't do it. This one, however, since it has like a whole loading screen between it, and it's like this new introduction, Goku's Rage, that kind of thing, you start off clean slate, so you're full health, empty ki, full stamina. So we can't fully kill Frieza, the mission just doesn't allow for that. But, you know, he gets pretty weak, and then we'll move on to the next scene. It doesn't wait for dialogue, thankfully, it's not dependent on that. So as quickly as you can get him down to that certain amount of health, you know, you can move on to the next fight, which is Frieza and Cooler on an erupting Namek, basically. And, for this fight, I think I'm going to be pretty quiet. I just want you to watch it, and I want you to see how poorly I did, how much I got beat up, and how close it was to me completely dying.
Koa and Mira really fought him for like a big timeline.
I will beat you to the face for grabbing our honor. Let us begin! Hurry up and finish this! There's no need for that. Anyway, you know. We'll destroy this entire...
So as you might remember, I didn't equip the healing items that I got for free. Because typically, I don't need them, and it takes time to equip the items, right? But that was one of the scariest fights I've ever had, especially considering, you know, I was on world record pace at that point. And it was a terrifying fight. It could have gone a lot better. It could have gone a lot faster. A lot of it was just, you know, my mistakes or my general lack of skill when it comes to, you know, basic fighting. But some of it was definitely like Frieza and Cooler ganged up on me a lot more than they usually do. And I just kept getting like countered. But anyway, now that we can fly, we can talk to him. We say vehicles are cool. He agrees, so he gives us clothing. It's 4 pieces. Each of them sell for 32,500 zenny. So that's quite a bit. So we'll just fly to the store. We'll sell those. Get lots of money. And we want to buy Giant Storm. That's a technique that, or a little bit of a strategy or whatever, that I borrowed from Hat Lord. When I first got my like 2 hour, I think it was like a 2 hour flat time. It was world record at that time. Hat Lord came back shortly afterward with, I think it was 1 hour 50 minutes 40 something seconds, I believe. You can see I equipped the healing item as soon as I could. I was like, I'm not gonna let that happen again. But yeah, and one of the things he did was he purchased Giant Storm, and later, after we beat Kid Buu, and technically Bardock and Mira and Beerus, and we're like actually back in the Time Nest, he then ran back out to the hub and purchased the Supercell, like, I hope you're reborn as something good, or something like that. And so I've adopted those. I think they're faster. I do want to test them sometime to be sure, because, you know, obviously it takes time to leave the Time Nest, run out, purchase a thing, and then equip it later on before going into the mission. So it's just a matter of, does it save enough time to justify that? That's what it always comes down to. But Giant Storm is useful for 2 different splits. There's the Cell Saga Split, particularly when we're fighting the Metal Coolers, the second and third time, because you have to fight Metal Coolers 3 different times in this split. It's dumb. The second and third time, though, Giant Storm is useful. And then Giant Storm is also useful in the first part of the Golden Frieza split, which obviously you'll see later in the run if you stick around.
You aren't really going to fight, are you?
In the correct time, 16.
I'll end.
Yeah, so basically, now that we've encountered Cell there, first we're gonna fight Mira, because he's a butt and he likes to interject. Then we get to fight Cell Juniors. Then we get to fight more Cell Juniors. Then we get to fight Metal Coolers, then Metal Coolers, then Metal Coolers. Then we get to fight Cell again. So, yeah. Okay, so this is another thing that's unavoidable. This NPC, Fu, he does not appear anywhere in the world that I've seen where you could talk to him ahead of time. And so you're yanked out of the time nest so that he can show you this and be like, Crystal Raids? I think that's what they're called. But I don't care. Yeah, it's Crystal Raid battles. So you just master the text and you fly back up and you go back into the time nest and just continue the mission. I do want to see, I want to experiment more and see if there might be a way to tease that out earlier, the same way that I did the Bulma thing with the mascots. But again, how it seems to work to me is when it reloads the hub, or like I don't know, if you're in a spot where a mission would send you out and you're at a point in the game where it wants to tell you something, it has a queue and it will only tell you like one thing at a time. And so I wonder if I can pinpoint the time, like the earliest point that Fu would pull you out to tell you about Crystal Raid battles, and then tease that out earlier. But since it's a persistent thing on the map at this point, I mean, I guess Bulma's persistent too, now that I think about it. Like, once she first appears, is she? Shoot! I don't know, point is, I do want to see if I can find a way to make Fu talk to you earlier, just at a time that's more convenient so he doesn't pull you out in the middle of a mission, basically. But I don't know of any way to avoid that yet. Much like the Hero Coliseum, it's just one of those things you have to sit through and then just rush back into the time nest as quickly as you can. I'll tell you guys now. First, this isn't scripted. Like any of my post commentaries before, none of them are scripted. I'll tell you what it comes to mind that I think is important. Not that I assume you thought it was, given all the jumping back and forth and tangents and whatnot, but that's one thing. Second thing, I did not prepare well enough. I should have had more water. All this talking is just making my throat dry, so I apologize if I cough or anything like that. But yeah, so at this point, I have not been able to tell anything as far as like kill them by a certain point and things will go faster, you know? But you need to beat the 3 Cell Juniors here. And then after Yamcha speaks here, Android 16 starts talking and he never stops talking. That's an exaggeration. Of course he stops talking at some point, but he talks forever. So you just gotta wait for it. Like a 4th Cell Junior appears just to give you something to fight, I think. You can see he's invincible at that sliver. But yeah, it's weird.
Let the anger built up inside you flow freely. There is no need to hold it back any longer.
So this is one of these parts where when the scene transitions and like the next fight begins, you keep whatever health and ki and stamina you have at that point. So at the start of this part, I have my full ki bar. So what I try to do is I try to use my Giant Storm ultimate that I just bought and equipped to see if I can potentially kill more than 1 Cell Junior at a time. Because in order to advance to the next mission, you just need to beat the Cell Juniors as quickly as possible. And so, you know, if I could get them all in one go, that would be great. And just, you know, move straight on to the next part. The next part is one of those clean slate fights. It's the first of the 3 Metal Cooler battles. Cell just getting in the way of my energy blast there. But yeah, you start off with full health, 0 ki, and full stamina. So I cannot do that one. Like, I can't use Giant Storm in that fight. But in the 2 Metal Cooler fights that follow it, you keep what key you had at the end of the previous one. Something to keep in mind, and something when running that I try to keep an eye on, just so I know how much key I'm working with, and whether I can use, you know, Giant Storm right away.
Very well. Allow me to welcome you to the set.
Metal Cooler. Why here and now? Always this Metal Cooler character. Why
So you know what's obnoxious? When you're trying to fight Metal Coolers, and Cell won't leave you alone because for some reason, Gohan stopped fighting him, so now he's on you. And of course, fighting Cell here does nothing for you. So I you know, bashed him away, hoping that would buy me some time. I just need to beat 2 more Metal Coolers, but of course, Cell is right again on my back, and I'm just hoping that he'll leave me alone. Thankfully, you saw him start to circle Gohan at the end, but he interfered enough. Because there have been times where going into this next Metal Cooler fight, this part of the song happens. When I've killed 4 of them. And it was already happening there, you know? But yes, I deselect, so I'm not targeting anyone. I use Giant Storm. Because I'm the only target on the map at this point, the enemies tend to circle around me. And so what I found is that if I just am not targeting anyone, they're not likely to block the ultimate, and I could get potentially multiple kills. Sometimes it backfires like that, where I just killed no one. But you know, when I can kill 4 at a time, like the first time I tried it, it's really nice. So now that I have just 2 more to kill, you know, I have 8 out of 10 KO, just 2 left. I don't want to use any other skills because I want to maintain at least 3 bars of ki for this next bit where I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to deselect, so I'm not targeting any of the Metal Coolers. I'm going to use Giant Storm and hope that it connects with a lot of them. Trunks is the target at this point, so they're less likely to focus on you. So you see there I only killed 2 of them because more were like gathered around him. So the explosion just missed more of them. But it's still generally worth trying from what I found. And that's why I'm reluctant to potentially get rid of Giant Storm and the Super Soul that Hatlord introduced. But I do think that I should test it a little bit, just with my own personal style. And see if it... just make sure that it's still worth it, you know? So Trunks finally killed 1, you might have seen. It was our 10th kill. That was good. And there we go, all 12 are down. So, no more Metal Coolers. Or multiple at least. We'll find Metal Cooler again later, but that's different. But those ones are down. And so now, the last fight of the Cell Saga is fighting Cell himself. It's you and Gohan against Cell. And you just have to beat him. You just have to beat him as in, like, you don't have to wait for dialogue to pass or anything. It's not one of those. He can be annoying. He's usually not... I'm not afraid of him. Like, I'm not thinking that I don't think I've ever thought that I was gonna die on this fight, you know? But it can be really obnoxious how he'll just run away, or he'll chase Gohan, or Gohan will knock him away from you when you're in the middle of comboing him. Or like that, he just knocks him away once I start attacking, you know? Something I don't think I've mentioned yet, if an enemy is using their ultimate attack, if you can deliver a charged heavy attack on them, it will cancel their ultimate and break their stamina. You might have noticed the stamina there was red. That means like the red will just fill up like faster than normal stamina recharges, and once it does, like fills up all the way, their stamina will just be back to full and they can use it again freely. But breaking someone's stamina is really useful, and that's not the only way to break it, but that's the way that I am most comfortable with and the way that I most often get it off. I do try it at times to do the other way, which is just like you press forward and the light attack at the same time, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I'm really bad at connecting it, and usually just end up wasting more time trying than I actually save time being successful, you know? Nothing much to say about this split. You fight Android 16, you fight Mira, You kind of fight Mira again, because the second time he has invincibility until dialogue passes, you know. And then you fight Android 16 on a team with Cell. Like, Cell is on his team, not yours, obviously. So, just let that play out, unless I think of something else to say. You know, actually, I guess I'll take the time to talk about this. So, I already did mention the main reason we train with Yamcha is to make it so there's a chance for the Turtle Stone hunt to trigger. That's a random chance just every time you complete a mission once you've trained with him at least that one time. And like, it really is random. I've had runs where he never shows up. I've had runs where he shows up 4 times. I don't know if there's any way to influence it beyond, you know, just fighting with him as early as possible. But, yeah, it sucks. And then beyond that, once he does appear, again, like, how many TP medals you get from the Turtle Stone hunt depends on how quickly you get the Turtle Stone back to him. The first time, when he only throws 1 stone, because if you train with him multiple times doing that, he'll end up throwing more. The first time, if he doesn't throw the stone somewhere on that resort island, there is a very little chance you'll actually get it fast enough back to him that you'll get the full 10. Instead, you'll probably get 6 TP medals, and that obviously won't be enough for the 15 that you need. So Yamcha is like one of the biggest RNG things in this run. He is, I think, the most like potent and consistent run killer. And so throughout the run, you know, I'm wondering, like, I'm hoping that he'll show up, and thankfully he showed up right there. And so, as soon as you get the notification that Yamcha is hosting a special class, you drop whatever you're doing and you go and do it. Because otherwise, there is a very, very real chance that he will not have another class for the rest of your run, and you basically just lost PB or whatever you were going for. So you fly around, you hoping that you see it. I found it right there, which was really lucky. Talk to him, I get 10 TP medals. So now I have all 15 that I need for the upcoming requirement. Which again, that requirement happens right after the Buu Saga Split, so we're not quite there, but we're getting closer. That being said, you know, when you have your first Yamcha special class, drop everything and do it, but if more come up, ignore them. All they do at that point, as far as, you know, we currently have the run, like, as far as I have the best times for, and, you know, that's the strategies I've devised or whatever, any class after the first, any extra Turtle Stone hunt is just a waste of time. Now, if this were like 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, I don't think quite 4, I think just 3 even, the run at that point actually did require 2 Yamcha classes. 1 for TP medals, and then 1 to give you enough money, basically, for the transformation split. But we've changed it. I found NPCs that give you clothing that you can sell for a lot of Zenny. And then to make it even better, Hatlord found that, like, you didn't have to feed Majin Buu giant crabs. You could feed him 99 water and 2 chocolate, and that'll have the same result. And that's just much cheaper. So improvements have since been found in these last 3 months. A lot of improvements.
So it would seem that this stranger is my ally. You know, to be honest, I didn't think there were any.
Alright, so there goes the Android 16 and Mira split. Next we have the Expert Mission split, and it's similar to how we had to do that parallel quest at the very beginning of the run. You know, that parallel quest was just kind of to introduce you to a lot of different potential aspects of parallel quests. And these 2 Expert Missions we have to do are really just to give you a taste of, you know, 2 common Expert Missions. There's the Great Ape Expert Mission, and then there's, like, the Super Villain Expert Mission. So the first one, it's against Great Ape Napa, and the second one is against, like, Super Villain Turles. I think they're called Super Villains, but it's Turles, I can tell you that much at least. Just to show you different things, like, you know, you can get mind-controlled, and so you have to fight your shadow self, or someone has to beat you up as you're possessed in order to bring you back. And then like the giant Ki Blast, how you have to fight that back. And then with the Turles one, the second expert mission tutorial, which you'll see here shortly. When he sends you into like a little pocket dimension and you fight another, you know, villain. And then when you have to go around and break the dark crystals to help other people get back to the main fighting realm. But as far as I've been able to find so far, there's no way to skip these expert missions. You just need to do both of them. I've tried to find skips or ways to like half complete them and then exit out and have it count or whatever. I was hoping there'd be like some sort of flag that would be checked at some point, you know, to mark completion, but so far I have not been able to find that. So we beat the Shadow Us. We're sent back into this realm. And then what it tells you to do here is it's like, oh no, Callum in this case is being mind controlled. Just go punch him and that'll stop it. But Sage of Keyblades and Lord Pixel pointed out to me, like, if you don't punch him, it'll just move to the next phase where it's like, this is what happens if you don't punch them and they're mind controlled, you have to fight them. And so that's what we're doing here. Now, Callum kind of kicked my butt. It's embarrassing. And it took time, and I'm not happy with it. But that's what happened, so... there we go. He even had the, like, Whis or Beerus flick, like, interrupt. I don't even know what that is, but I feel like he shouldn't have that. But once you beat him, then it shows you the giant key ball attack that the Great Ape can do. As soon as it moves to this scene, I just start holding B to charge my blast, and as soon as the target appears on the ball, even during that cutscene, I let go of B. And as you saw when it like backed out the camera to show my character, I had already thrown my key ball. And because it's, you know, the expert mission tutorial, you don't have to do a lot of damage to the key blast in order to send it back to Great Ape Napa. So that's enough. Just the bomb key blast, that's enough. So yeah, just this next expert mission. Once that's done, we need to fly back down, talk to Supreme Kai of Time, basically just to check off that we did it. And then we're able to go back into the Time Nest, and you can see the next split coming up is the Buu Saga Split. So it's after that the 15 TP medals are required. If you don't have them, he's like, are you familiar with TP medals? And then he'll provide an explanation if you click no or whatever. If you already have 15 TP medals, he just congratulates you, he gives you 3, you move on with your life. Typically with this part, just one consecutive energy blast is enough to kill the Cyberman completely, and then once you do, you can fly back through this portal. If he blocks, however, it is not enough damage. What I found is the fastest for these dark crystals, you fly toward them and hope that Turles leaves you alone. You target the crystal when you can, hit it with X as you fly up to it, and then that lets you go straight into attacking with Y. Or, you know, light attack and then heavy attack, depending on how you're playing, what controller you're playing with. But, it's enough to finish it off. Then you just kill him with the rest of your team, and there you go. On clear, we mark the split. Unless you forget like me and you let it go a little bit longer. I actually don't think I forgot. I think I hit it, but I did that weird hit where it's like, it made the sound, but I guess I didn't press the button down all the, like the key down all the way. Either way.
What is it?
So you talk to her, because I don't think the next mission is prepared until you talk to her. Normally, you can see like that red scroll icon above their heads. Normally that means that it's required to talk to them before continuing forward. Like, it's your objective. But that's not always the case. Like, the two on the left there, like Spots and Kulina, those are both from DLC that I have. And so it's not required to talk to them. But, you know, if you want to do the DLC missions, it is. And there are other times, even DLC aside, where someone will have that scroll above their head, and it doesn't really mean anything. Like, they might have something relevant to say, but it's not required to speak to them in order to continue on in the story mode. So, difficult to say, but yeah. So with this fight, you need to get Broly down to a certain point of health. Currently, like the two enemies, or I guess three enemies. You have Broly, I think you have three. Broly, Buu, and Vegeta. Buu might not be on the map yet. It might just be Broly and Vegeta who are counted as your enemies. But there's no point in fighting Vegeta. You just want to weaken Broly down to this point where he's invincible, and then wait for the scene to transition. It's just a matter, again, of waiting for dialogue to pass, like so much of this game. Now at this point, you want to beat Broly as quickly as you can. Like here you can finish him off. So I like to do that full combo, but instead of knocking him down, I end with the Meteor Crash, and that's enough. Then you have to beat Majin Buu down to, again, like a certain amount of health. And then I think he says you're going to die. What does he say exactly? It doesn't matter what he says. But it's like, you're going to die, you know, something like that. And then Vegeta's like, you know, he's not just strong, he's immortal. And then you're just waiting for dialogue to finish. Buu has quite an annoying moveset, though. You might have seen earlier he sent out a beam, and if that had actually hit me, if I hadn't vanished when I did, I would have turned into a little floating ball of candy that just couldn't do anything but move around for a good few seconds. It's really annoying when he does that move. And he has I think that's his evasive, and he has an ultimate where he turns you into like a gingerbread cookie, and you have to watch this little scene of him doing it, and then he eats you, and that heals him some. So not only does it take time, but it heals him, and so obviously that means you have more health of his to deplete. So, more that's obnoxious. That's the last time, though, until the transformation that we'll see like regular Majin Buu. For the remainder of this split, it'll be Super Buu. And then after the 15 TP medal split, we have Kid Buu. Now you know what to expect.
Good job out there.
So this, you just need to get him down to basically dead. And while you can do it faster than this, just depending on like how much he and the NPCs cooperate, I tend to think of him saying my fusion ran out as a pretty good time to stop it. So thankfully, like I was satisfied enough with how this went. It definitely could have gone faster if they just behaved, but it was good enough. The fight basically could just go a lot worse, and that's what you don't want. But here, you're fighting with adult Gohan against Super Buu. Once he reaches a certain point of health, the scene will transition, and then it'll be Super Buu and surprise Broly again. Kill Broly, just get him out of the way, and then kill Majin Buu. Or Super Buu, I guess, but you know. And then you're done. Well, okay, to clarify. You need to get Super Buu down to a certain health. Then there'll be dialogue. And then you have two more fights, and then it's the end of the split. Because after this, we have Janemba. We have one part where you have to get Janemba down to a certain amount of health, and then Vegeta will appear. and then you have to just finish Janemba off.
You're fantastic, the real deal.
So that's the end of the Buu Saga Split. Next we have the 15 TP medals. Again, we thankfully already have them at this point, but like this would be your last chance if you never had a Yamcha special class. You'd be praying that it popped up right here. Because if it does not, you have to go do extra missions until he does host a special class. If that should happen and you don't want to reset your run in case you're actually running it yourself, I would recommend going around and doing as many instructor missions as you can. I would save Krillin for last if possible, just because you don't want to risk having a Krillin special class instead of the Yamcha special class. But in general, the instructor missions that you can do at this stage without doing like advancement tests, which I would not recommend, that would take a lot more time. They're easy enough, especially at this level, that you can get through them pretty quickly. So, you know, it immediately like rolls another chance for the Yamcha special class to occur. But on top of that, if he decides to never show up, which can happen, it has happened to me, doing each instructor mission, you know, for the first time, you get a TP medal for it. So like, worst case scenario, you're going to be doing 10 extra missions. And that really does take a lot of time. Chances are, if you have to do that, you're not going to get a personal best, but that's okay. Sometimes it's better to just keep going in a run, so you stay familiar with like how the end of the run works, you know. Anyway, with the Kid Buu fight, you fight him until he reaches the health like about to his name Kid, and then Hercule starts talking. Once that starts, you just have to wait for a certain bit of dialogue to pass, then the scene will automatically end. We'll see Goku with his Spirit Bomb, it's working out pretty well, etc, etc. And I mark mine on the clear.
Jeez.
So now we're sent straight into another fight. First it's going to be Bardock, the Masked Saiyan, because at this point you don't know that it's Bardock. But surprise, it is. After him we'll have Mira, and then lastly we'll have Beerus. So the split name, BAB, it's Bardock and Beerus. Technically Mira's in there too, but whatever. Not all these splits are completely accurate. At least all of these fights are straightforward, it's just a matter of killing them. No dialogue that you have to wait for, no bits of invincibility, none of that. Just beat them as quickly as you can, and try not to take damage. Between Masked Saiyan, you know, this Bardock fight here, and Mira, your health, your ki, your stamina, all that transfers over. And then with Beerus, you have a clean slate. And technically, too, in the Beerus fight, you're actually not alone. You have Whis on your side, which, in general, I think is bad. Just in general, having an AI teammate is not preferable because they tend to get in the way, I feel, more than they help. But there are times where they can get you out of a combo or something. So what you saw right there, that was another way to stamina break. Again, he was using an ultimate attack, so either you can give them like a fully charged heavy attack, or, and this is using like the Xbox controller as reference, you hit AX simultaneously, and then as you're flying, you hit A again to vanish. and it sends you behind them. It just breaks their stamina instantly and cancels the ultimate. It's very helpful. So yes, here's the fight with Beerus. It's not one of my favorite fights. It's one of the ones that I tend to be afraid of. Of all the fights in this game, the ones I'm most afraid of are the Frieza Cooler fight on Namek, this Beerus fight, and the Whis fight. Those are the three that I'm most worried about dying on. And as a fourth, like the final fight against Furry Mira too, like that one obviously can be really hard because if he's ultimate happy, which sometimes he can be, his ultimates in that form are really hard to avoid. You really can't break him out of the ultimate, like do the stamina break, because he kind of disappears when he uses that, as far as I know. But you know, like if I were to use a healing item, these would be the runs, or these would be the battles that I would assume it would happen on. But there he goes. Beerus is down, so on clear we'll mark our split and move on. So now we're heading into we're in the Golden Frieza split. And this is another point where I changed up how I did the run compared to my previous PC world record. So, as I mentioned way early in this post-commentary, one of the requirements, much like the TP medals, is you need to have your race-specific transformation unlocked. You don't need to equip it, you don't need to use it, you just need to have it unlocked.
People of Kanton City, have you been to the Hero Coliseum
So
yet?
that requirement happens basically right before the final fight. It's right before you have to go in and fight Toa, I believe.
You've got all kinds of hero figures at your disposal.
But just because that's like where it's required, doesn't mean that's where you have to do it. So for this, again, copying Hat Lord, I Hope You're Reborn as Someone Good this time. And then I'm going to buy 99 water and 2 chocolate. In this game, you can only have a stack of up to 99 of each item, and you can only have 1 stack of each item. So, what we used to do for Majin Buu in order to fill him up, because if you didn't know, to get the Majin transformation, you have to give him enough food that he spawns 3 children, and then you talk to him again, and then you have a big fight. What we used to do is give him giant crabs, which are more efficient because they're just a more expensive food, but they're more expensive, and so we had to do other things to earn that money. Instead, we can give him 2 chocolate and 31 water, as we're doing right here, and that'll be enough to spawn the first child. And then the last 2 require 34 water each, which, you know, thankfully now we have 68 water left because 2 chocolate, we planned ahead. So we just go through, we give him the rest of this water, he'll spawn the last 2 children, then we talk to him, and we have our fight. But yes, why I'm doing this here instead of during the actual transformation split that you'll see later on is basically just because I'm already leaving the time nest, right? For the strats that I'm currently doing, like still using Giant Storm, and I Hope You're Reborn as something or someone good this time, like that Super Soul, I want to make the most of every time I leave the time nest, you know, on purpose or otherwise. And so I figure I'm at a high enough level at this point that doing the transformation arc transformation split a little bit earlier won't be that detrimental, and I'm not having to leave the time nest an extra time in the future. So that's my main thinking on that front. So the Golden Frieza split itself might end up being longer, but when I don't have to do the transformation during the transformation split, you know, that should make up the time, and since I'm not having to leave the time nest an extra time, it should save me just a little bit. So what we're doing first, we're getting him down to this point of health where he says you're going to die, you know. You can't hurt him anymore just yet, but now it tells us how to do our transformation. So we use Purification, we become Kid Buu. It's not my favorite, but you have to finish everyone off with Purification. You don't have to fight them in Purification, you just have to finish them off. I can turn off Purification, fight them as a normal Majin, transform back, do the finishing blow, that kind of thing. But what I've been doing recently is I've just been using Y. If you're close, you just pummel them, and it's powerful, because, you know, Y is your heavy attack. If you're far away from who you're targeting, you'll do that quick, like, spin dash sort of thing, and it's just a way to, like, get up close to them really quickly. It does some damage if you make contact. So I've just been trying to get in, do as much damage as quickly as possible. If they're at a distance and they're low health, like you saw right there, I'll start using the key button, and instead of the key blast, he, like, creates a portal and sends his foot through it to kick them. So that's just how I've been doing it. I think I finished all 3 of the small Majin Buu, so now it's just the big one again, one more time. Once he's dead, we're done with the transformation. We'll be sent back into Majin Buu's house. He'll tell us, like, oh, be careful, use it for good. I don't know what he says. He says a thing, and then we leave his house and we go back into the time nest to continue the story.
Jeez, how strong do you have to get?
Oh, so, right. Something happened with this run. But you'll see that I just reached level 50 at the end of that fight. So you could just keep that in mind, just as a point of reference. When I went back to the time nest, as soon as I touched the door, my character froze. Very shortly afterward, like, all of the, you know, the visuals of the game freaked out. My recording on OBS stopped. It said that the encoder had been overloaded. So you could, I put text up. You can pause and read that if you want, but basically it's just what I'm explaining here. I also forgot what my hotkey was to pause my timer, so I had to, like, check the settings of Live Split in order to see. So I paused it at 1:26:01, but if you rewind, you can see that, you know, when I touched the door, it was 34 seconds before that. So just keep that in mind. Like, the game crashed, I paused my timer. You can see that I loaded back into the game. I selected the same character. It's the same level. It's the exact same file, I promise. I'm going to go back up to the time nest, and I'm going to just resume the timer, you know, once I press the door, basically. And then we're going to continue the run. So, stepping forward, and then starting the timer again. And once I reach the end of the run, we'll just remember to remove 34 seconds from the final time. But here's where I made a mistake. I remembered to go in and put in my attribute points. What I forgot to do is go to my equipment and actually equip the Super Soul, which was, like, the entire reason that I left the time nest to begin with. But whatever, so I had to do this part without the Super Soul. What that Super Soul does is when you deliver the finishing blow on an enemy, your ki, however many bars potentially you have, is fully refilled. And so that means, like, if I use an ultimate and finish someone off, I can immediately use an ultimate again. And if I finish someone off with that, it just chains. Or, you know, with super skills too, whatever. So I just had to adapt on the fly. Like, I realized it as I was loading in that I forgot to equip it. I was tempted to quit out, equip it, load back in, but I decided I was just gonna try it. So, yeah, maybe it's slower than it usually is for me, but I did the best I could. What I tried to do instead is I'd connect with someone, I would do most of a heavy combo to build up some ki, and then I would start doing my my Meteor Crash. And I just had to keep a constant eye on my key bar to know how much I had to actually work with at any given time. Because obviously if I don't have enough ki to use Meteor Crash, which is, you know, one full bar, then I need to just keep doing my heavy attack combo to actually finish them off. But if not, it's a pretty quick and consistent way to finish someone. You make contact, like you fly up to them, you make contact with a light attack so you don't send them flying. You do most of the heavy attack just before you would slam them down, and then you use Meteor Crash to actually finish them off. The scariest part is compared to Giant Storm. With this method, I actually have to get up close and land at least the first blow so I can start my combo. These guys, despite being like Frieza's underlings, they can be pretty annoying sometimes. Like, they block at the right times, they evade at the right times, they can catch you in Meteor Crash as well, or things like that. So, you know, you have to be careful. And then too, like, if you were ever to die during this fight, you have to restart and like kill all 15 of them over again. It's really obnoxious. And I'm pretty sure too, once you kill all 15, you have to fight Frieza. And it's one of those, you know, wait for dialogue to pass things. He's invincible, you're not. I think you start with the same amount of health you ended this part with. We'll find out here. Yep, you do. Same health, same ki, same stamina. If Frieza kills you here, you have to fight all 15, like kill all 15 of the minions again. It doesn't restart you at Frieza. It's a really cool checkpoint, or lack of checkpoint rather. I think my very first completed run of this game ever, you know, that I was timing it, I died multiple times either on that 15 minion fight or on this fight. And it took so much time and energy out of me, you know. So it's something you want to avoid if at all possible. Part of the reason after I knock them successfully down like that I blast them with ki is just to stall. I know I mentioned earlier part of it's to get the ki blaster like bonus experience at the end, and that's absolutely true. But especially in fights like this, when I'm at low health and I just don't want to deal with the villain, blasting them with ki can be a good way to keep them down a little bit longer. But yeah, something you'll notice if you actually look at the timer and like the number counting down on the Golden Frieza split in particular, I'm gradually gaining time, which, you know, in a speedrun is bad. I always get the terminology confused because it's like gaining time sometimes sounds good, but then sometimes sounds bad. Like, is losing time but you know, the bad thing. Like, I was at minus 249, now I'm at minus 58 seconds, you know? But that's again because we did the transformation split during the Golden Frieza split, like at the beginning, before we actually started any of these fights. So just something to keep in mind. Like, it looks bad now, but we'll make up for it later in the run, when the transformation split comes up. So with this one, you need to fight both Metal Cooler and Frieza. You just have to knock them both out. You got Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku, and Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Vegeta fighting alongside you. My preference is when they leave either Metal Cooler or Frieza to you, and they together focus on the other one. It's just easier for me that way, and so thankfully that happened pretty well here. Like, Vegeta, you can see him kind of easing around me. But for the most part, like, I got to pretty much finish Metal Cooler off all on my own. With him being as weak as he was, I figured I would let Vegeta finish him off, so I just went up to help with Golden Frieza. And there he goes. At this point, we have a lot of cutscenes to skip through, and then we have one more fight against Golden Frieza and Metal Cooler again. Like, it's basically the same fight as what we just had. Supposedly they're stronger, but, you know, it's basically the same thing. And then after that fight, we can mark the split and move on to Whis training.
This time, I'll make sure you don't come back.
Their muscles are forged. They're much stronger than before. Even Goku and Vegeta in their current state will have a hard time with this.
Yeah.
Hey, aren't you gonna help them?
Fine. And this one isn't mine to butt in. I'm only here for Toa, but I suppose I'll cheer you on. This is the end of the line, Frieza!
So there they go, on clear. We marked that split. And so yeah, now it looks bad with like the red and the plus 2 minutes and 10 seconds, but it'll look better in a little bit. So yes, now we're on the Whis training split. And I'm gonna say right now, it did not go well for me. You might remember the Frieza Cooler fight on the exploding Namek. It went kind of like that. These were the two most butt-clenchy fights that I had the entire run. Perhaps in my entire like Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, you know, speedrunning career, you might say. It was like devastatingly close. I hope that you watch and pay attention and enjoy. Thankfully, at least this time, I have a healing item that I can use, but it's not a lot.
Whis may serve as my friend, but he's also my instructor. And don't hold back, Owen. Give him all you've got, understood?
Oh dear. Do take it easy.
For those of you who are not super familiar with this game, first, you know, you can see Patroller up in the top left. You know, that's my icon. You can see my health, my ki, and my stamina. Stamina is that blue bar. If you're wanting to vanish, which is like the quick teleport to get behind someone, if you're attacking, it takes 1 blue bar, 1 bar of stamina. If you're defending, it takes 2 bars. So like if I'm under attack and I want to get out of it, you know, like teleport away basically, it takes 2 bars of stamina. Why that is relevant is you'll just see times where it would be really beneficial for me to get away, but I just don't have enough yet. Like right here, I only have 1.5 bars of stamina, so I'm caught in his ultimate. I just have to take it. There's nothing I can do. It's the same thing with evasive skills. You need to use 2 bars of stamina to use the evasive skill I currently have equipped. So here, he catches me in it again, and once more, I do not have the stamina. But you can see that I'm mashing the evasive button. I get out with just a sliver of health remaining, and I use my 1 healing item that I have available to me. I have no other sources of healing at this point. Keep in mind, if I didn't have or didn't use that healing item when I did, I would be dead right now. So I use Meteor Crash as much as I can. I use my consecutive energy blast. He still has health. I'm out of ki. I play it as safely as I can. I don't want to risk confrontation like running up and trying to connect, so I just use the like AX dash forward and knockback attack. I'm barely able to beat it. It was so close, and I was so afraid. But I'm really glad. 2 fights, though, in this run that were incredibly close for me, and 2 fights that I had to play more slowly and carefully, just so I didn't die. Because obviously, if I were to have died, it would have taken a lot longer than it did. But you can see, like, we went from plus 210 to plus 308, because it was not a fast fight by any means. Caught up in a lot of his ultimates, having to play it as safe as I did at the very end, just not being able to connect a lot of combos with him in general as much as I would have liked to. It was a messy fight.
So you show yourself at last, Toa.
I knew. I've been waiting. Simply tracing our steps would eventually lead you to the world.
So now Mira is here fighting alongside Masked Saiyan. All you have to do is just take both of them out. Which, you know, easier said than done, as with like everything. but at least there's, you know, no gimmicks about it.
Strong. Stronger than ever. And that's one of Majin Buu's obstacles. What? Mira. These two have quite a lot of energy. It would be very for their energy to help revive the Ginyu.
I knew it! Your place all along. Let's unite our universe with the
Okay, so now that those two are gone, we have the hero that we pick at the very beginning of the game, like after the first time you beat Raditz. He's the statue that appears, you know, in the recreation plaza in the middle of that fountain. I say fountain. It's not like it has water, but it's not spewing anything. Anyway, it's him and Toa against you. You don't have to fight Toa at all. You just need to take out the hero. So ignore Toa. Focus on taking out the hero, whichever hero it is you picked. I pick Hero Earthling just because it's the very top one on the list. And as far as I've been able to tell, they have the same stats. Like their health, ki, stamina, it's all the same from what I've been able to tell. They might still have racial differences, because if you weren't familiar, different races do have different, like, inherent kind of abilities or whatnot. Like at low health, the Namekians automatically start to heal. For Saiyans, if they're at low health, their attacks are more powerful. When Majins have full stamina, their defense is higher. Things like that. So I think that those still apply, but health, ki, stamina, those are all static. I think their skills are the same, but different races and genders have different combos, like for their basic attacks. It's hard to say. But point is, I just stick with the very top one. It's the male Earthling. Yeah. But we at least finished that quickly. You can see the gold split there. If nothing else, we have that going for us. And since we already had done the transformation, we just marked it off, and you can see it went from plus 247 to minus 240. So we're going into this run, or like this end bit, looking pretty good.
I found it! It's...
What are you doing? How did you follow me this far? Erasing the Dragon Ball simplicity. That should have changed the outcome of our battle. Should have changed everything.
That move of hers is annoying just because she just disappears from the map for a little bit. I mean, that move too is annoying because I'm in a bubble. But she disappears, teleports away, it just wastes time, and then you have to like re-target her and re-fly up to her or whatever.
vandalize this place anymore.
But you get through it. One more consecutive energy blast. And then some hits. There we go. Because you can't kill her, you just have to get her down to basically that sliver. And now we're moving on to the final fight. Also, in case you're curious, you can see like how big a gap there was between the transformation split and the Toa split. I went from like minus 240 to minus 329. That's because usually when I would do the transformation split, I would do it on the clear after I do the transformation fight. And so then I still have to, like, you know, talk to Majin Buu, leave his house, teleport back into the main hub, teleport to the time nest, go inside, start the mission. So all of that time I got to skip, just in case you were curious how there was such a big jump. But yes, this is the final split of the run. It's the final battle. It consists of 3 different phases, all of them against Mira. This first phase is really just dependent on the dialogue. You can see at this point, like, so he's invincible now. This is the one time in the game that you are also invincible. So you'll see me here, like, there's gonna be a long time where I'm just gonna stand there and let him fight me, because I get lazy. Like, usually I'll keep fighting because I don't want them to, like, kill me. But here, I'm invincible, so it doesn't matter. And this, like, Toa talks for so long, and so you just sit and wait it out, unfortunately. After this, Toa will be fighting with you. You just have to beat Mira as quickly as possible. And it's one of those cases where your health, stamina, and ki will persist from like this phase to the next. And same with second to the third. And then the third phase is Mira in his furry form. I don't know. But once you see it, if you haven't before, like, you can't say I'm wrong. You're fighting alongside Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku. Beat him as quickly as you can, and the timer for the run ends on the final hit. Which I always miscalculate by a second, because I'm never sure what the final hit is, because it says finish, you know, like a second later. But whatever. So here it was nice that I was able to break, or, you know, we were able to break his stamina so early on, because we just got to get a lot of good hits in really quickly. And that's what you always want. You want their stamina broken so you can just get your combos off as quickly as possible without interruptions. And so, in a way, really, the higher their stamina bar is, the more beneficial stamina breaks are, because their stamina is broken for longer, and so you get more hits in. It's quite nice. But you see here, it's Furry Mira. You just can't deny that.
How did you get there? Whis did me a favor and sent me in. I'm glad I finally get to
You can see me desperately trying to connect.
I'm the one coming to the rescue.
You scarcely believe the power coursing through me. Now there's
I swear at that point I was trying to get up, like I was mashing buttons, but I was just lying there.
the only desire I have
It's one of those ultimates, like, he's protected by that blue ball of energy, and so I don't think you can break it
so much of your
once he starts, you know, using the ultimate. So I just have to wait off to the side and wait it out, you know, try not to take damage, try not to let it blast me farther away, because then that means, you know, I have to take more time to fly back to him.
Lighten up, old man. I don't know about all that timeline mumbo-jumbo, but I do know
And his stamina's broken. So this is where we try to wail on him. You could see that I messed up my combo there.
besides, a fight against someone this strong doesn't
So we really didn't get a lot done in that stamina break, unfortunately, but, you know, it was definitely something. You do the best you can. So he's doing the ults again, so I'm just hanging back, hoping that I won't get hit. One hit me and it broke my stamina, but here we are. So that's a different ultimate that he used. I used my evasive so that I could just regain control of my character as quickly as possible, and I used that A+X and then A again move in order to zoom behind him, break his stamina, and, you know, cancel the ult. And here, now that he's down to just, like, you know, half of his last bar of health, we're just wanting to get him down as soon as we get... We're so close at this point, is the thing. Like, if he hadn't done that evasive and just let me finish him off. But here it is. This is where I should have marked. But right there, 146.19, minus the 34 seconds that we wasted because I forgot what my pause timer hotkey was, leaves us with a final run time of 1 hour, 45 minutes, and 45 seconds.
What?
So yeah, so this final cutscene, it kind of tells you, from what I know, how quickly you beat the final phase of Mira. If you beat him fast enough, Goku will not have this whole little bit, and you'll be the one doing, like, the Dragon Fist attack. But I kind of like this version better, because, like, I like Goku shouting at you to do it, like, it's just cool, the teamwork. And then I like watching Furry Mira, like, travel through this blue Kamehameha wave. I just think it looks really cool. Whereas the other one, you stand there a little bit awkwardly for a little, and then, like, and a bunch of people surround you, and, like, Gotenks is particularly creepy. People just kind of, like, smile and nod at you, and then you do your attack, you know. So it's cool because it means that you're faster, but I just prefer this one as a cutscene. But that was the run. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, or, you know, if you want to try running this for yourself, again, leaderboard link is in the description. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. Thank you one more time, and with that, have a good one, everybody.